أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The verse that I recited is from Surah Fajr, chapter 89, verses 27 to 30. And we've been reciting these verses from the very first night of Muharram and discussing the messages from Ashura under the teachings of Sayyidu Shuhada, as well as the companions that were with him. We step into the night, which is the night of Ashur. The day of Ashur and the night of Ashur, both are no less than the day of Mahshar, when everybody will be raised. In a way, if you look at it, how the hearts of the people are changing. And even on the day of Ashur, how the hearts of the people were changing. And how effective the message of Imam Hussein has been, that even till today, with the blessings of the blood that he gave and he irrigated, the land known as Islam is still flourishing. Tonight, the masaib and the difficulties are just quadrupled for Imam Hussein, as he and his family has been without water for a couple of nights. It is not easy to abandon your house, abandon your city, abandon all the comforts, and take your family members, no matter how important religiously or otherwise the event might be. But yet we see that Imam did that, and there was a higher purpose that was in his mind. And because of that purpose, today you and I and the millions of Muslimin and Mu'mineen around the globe are able to commemorate and come together like this. We've been discussing the messages from Ashura. And before we get to the messages, we briefly talk about the verse that I've been reciting. We see that this verse is talking about nafs mutma'in, a soul which is satisfied. We discussed in details in a few nights back as to what the satisfied soul is. How do we get to the soul which is considered to be satisfied? Or should we just leave the soul to be associated with masumeen, and we, just being non-masum, don't have to work towards this satisfied soul? No. There's a story, there's a phenomena in Quran and outside of Quran which is discussed in regards to the elements which are important as far as the creation of insan is concerned. We have this physical body, and then we have this soul. Quran talks about the concept of ruh, and then also talks about the concept of nafs. To still this day it is confusing to many as to what is the difference between nafs and what is the difference between ruh. The ruh that we possess, is it the same thing as nafs, or is it two different things, or two different entities? But nonetheless, we know this for sure, the soul is the most important element of this creation. And as far as the soul is concerned, Quran mentions different states of this soul. Either the soul could be in the state of being satisfied, or either the soul could be in a state where it is not satisfied. And that's why we see different ibarat and different words that are used in regards to the nafs. For example, we hear nafs ammara. Quran talks about it. We hear a nafs which is known as nafs lawwama. Ammara is the one which is dictating ego, which dictates on its own terms and things that it wants to be done. God forbid that we have this nafs ammara that is governing our life And that is the reason when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, was asked in regards to that the position of insan, where does it lie? Is it that insan superior or the angel superior? And Imam also referred back to the concept of nafs in there. He said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the angels and only gave them this aql, and there are no desires there. Allah created the animals and only gave them desires. There's no aql there. When Allah created human beings, there were both aql and desires in there. And this is where Imam very beautifully and eloquently explained the soul in which the aql takes over and is the governing element, and the desires are suppressed. This soul is superior than the angels. But in a soul where the driving agent is the nafs and the desires and the aql is suppressed, then this individual actually worse than animals. So it's up to you, where do you want to take this nafs to? Do you want to take it beyond the angels, or do you want to go down to the level of animals? And that is one of the reasons why some of the things that have become forbidden in our Islamic culture and in Islamic law, for example, alcohol. When one of the Maraji were asked as to why alcohol is haram, aside from the verse of Quran that exists in regards to that how it is najas and how it is amal al-shaytan, innama al-khamru wal-maysaru min amal al-shaytan, it talks about the ayat, explicitly says that it is forbidden. But then he gave a logical explanation as well. He said when a person intoxicates himself, he lowers himself or she lowers himself below the animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you ashraful makhluqat. He created you to be superior. And when you lower yourself below the animals, this is against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had planned. And so therefore, one of the reasons why it became forbidden. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If I can ask you to limit your movement as I'm speaking, so that we can continue the program. Nicely, salawat bheji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inna nafsa la ammaratun. The Quran talks about it, that the nafs which governs and talks towards or takes you towards, or is the dictating ego, la ammaratun bis-su'i illa ma rahima rabbi, except those upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been merciful. And this is where we see this nafs has different heads that need to be chopped off. Among the heads that this nafs has is the false pride that it possesses. And you will see all of these things that were possessed by those people who were standing in front of Imam Hussein. The false pride that they have, takabbur, the greed that they have, jealousy that they had, lust that they had, backbiting that they had, stinginess that they had, and malice that they had. These are the heads that need to be chopped off. But we look at those people and then we look at our own souls. If we possess any of these things, then also our nafs is nafs ammara. You go past this nafs, then you get to the stage of nafs lawwama. Again, there were many examples in Karbala of nafs lawwama as well. We see that people looking at what Imam Hussein is doing, how has he come to Karbala, whom has he brought with him, that brought about a change in their nafs. Before it was nafs ammara, the dictating ego, then it became nafs lawwama, the one which is a loathing ego, which is actually commanding them and bringing some sort of common sense to their heads. That look, what you're doing is wrong. So this is a stage where insan goes through from ammara, passing through lawwama, the one which does malamat, where you feel regret as to what you have done already. And then insan reaches to the level of nafs mutmainna. So we saw even on the day of Ashura, person known as Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, who was on the other side of the tent, who was on the other side with the army of Ibn Ziyad and Umar Asad, is now making his way back. This was a dictating ego initially. When he stood in front of Imam Hussein and held the reins of his horse, it was a dictating ego at that time. But over the course of 7 and 8 days, it became that loathing ego, which is nafs al-lawwama, which was feeling regret all of the time, and then it converted into nafs al-mutma'inna, which has gone ahead and joined the army of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And it's not just you and I should be looking for that. Prophets were asking for this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is addressing Imam Hussein by saying, as we implement this ayat, saying that the implementation of Ya ayyatuhun nafsul mutmainna is Imam Hussein. The Mufassireen have also mentioned Sayyidul Shuhada, Hazrat Hamza was also implementation of the same ayah. But there are prophets who are asking for itminan qalb from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We read in regards to Hazrat Ibrahim, he said, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Oh Allah, show me how do you create or bring dead to life. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ask him? He said, O Ibrahim, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? Do you not believe in me that I'm able to do so? He said, no, I believe in you, that you're more than capable of doing so. قَالَ بَلَا وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. But I want to have this itminan qalb and get to this satisfaction that you're able to do such a thing. And I want to see it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again ordered to go ahead and pick up these birds, put them in different places, and then call them with our izn, with our permission, and you will see how they all come together. Ibrahim is asking for itminan qalb from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here Imam Hussein, without being asked or without asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is bestowed this itminan qalb and satisfaction. And then the later part of the ayah which says, Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya. Return to your Lord in a state that you are satisfied. And God is satisfied with you. The word irji'i is telling us that when you ask someone to come back, that means they were already back there before. And now you're making them come back again to the same state. So Imam Hussein was already at the state of satisfaction and rizayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Irji'i, come back to that place of the satisfaction and the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you had believed in. So that Imam Hussein in this regard possesses the highest rank of the rizayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see that you and I are doing all of our works and all of our ibadat to seek the satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet there are certain individuals that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to seek their satisfaction. And I'm reading ayat of Quran. وَلَا سَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. An qareeb, in near future, وَلَا سَوْفَ. Indeed, God will bestow something that will satisfy you. What is this? Who is he addressing to? He's addressing to our Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That, O Prophet, very soon we will bestow something upon you which will satisfy you. The whole world is trying to satisfy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in mind certain individuals that He's trying to please as well. You see that when Hazrat Ibrahim was about to sacrifice his son, and he's about to take this knife and slaughter or sacrifice his son, and the whole incident that Allah replaces Hazrat Ismail. And Allah says, stop over here. We were only testing you. And we are radi with what you have done thus far. Indeed, it takes a big heart to even get to the extent of what Hazrat Ibrahim was doing. So this is Hazrat Ibrahim who did not even sacrifice his son. Allah says, we became radi with you to the extent that you have gone for us. But look at the job that Imam Hussein has to do. That every single person that is going, belonging to his household, towards the maqtal, there's this concept of sacrifice that is already in them, and Imam has to bring every single one of them back. Imam sees with his own eyes, and sometimes Imam has to pull these knives and these spears and these arrows out of the bodies of these people who belong to his family. How difficult of a job it is of Imam Hussein. Going to the messages that has been the theme from the very first day. Today we want to take this opportunity and talk about a very important theme of Ashura. And that theme is that how this Ashura gave a rebirth to Islam, because Islam was standing at a very critical place where there was complete downfall of Islam. Imam Hussein and his struggles give a rebirth to the religion, and how it was able to unite the communities together. We see that people such as Umar ibn Sa'id or Amr ibn Sa'id, when Imam was leaving Mecca, he says to Imam, "Oh Hussein, don't go. Why are you doing something which everyone else is against it? Why are you trying to cause corruption and fasad and the fitna in the communities and the societies? Do what everyone else has done." That means bay'ah to Yazid. Imam says when a person is leaving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ayat of Quran also says, the one who leaves for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has good intentions, how can I be causing fitna in the society? Instead, you see this to be as a fitna right now. But tomorrow you see that what I'm doing right now will be bringing everyone together. So among the things and the themes that we've been deriving, one of the themes is the unity that Imam ﷺ has given to us. We see that, for example, Ashura, a lot of the messages that we learned were from the kalam of Imam. Things that we learned were from the actions of Imam. But there were a few things, the intangible lessons from Ashura, that not necessarily Imam uttered them, nor did he perform with his actions. But those were the fruits and the results of what Imam ﷺ was doing. If you stay with me for these few moments, we want to show you as to how Imam never really said any of these things, but it was the direct result of what Imam ﷺ was doing. For example, as far as the kalam of Imam is concerned, we look at the kalam of our fourth Imam after this whole event. In the book which is associated with our Imam, known as Sahifa Sajjadiyah, a book which contains the dua, majmu'ah of du'as of Imam ﷺ. 54 du'as that are in this book. I don't know how many people, including me, can claim that we have read every single dua from this book. I'm sure some of you have. But these aren't the du'as that the normal individual would make. Oh Allah, give me this. Oh Allah, bestow this. Oh Allah, do this. Every single one of these du'as that Imam is saying is in a way a protest that he's doing in front of Banu Umayyah at that time. Because look at the position of Imam Zainul Abidin. He's in a condition where he has lost all of his family members. There's literally no males as far as the family is concerned. Everybody is lost in the battlefield in Karbala. Whoever had remained when Imam came back to Medina did not have any possibility of going along with Imam ﷺ. In this regard, he's alone. But he is the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Still his duty is not done. Should he just stay home and not do anything? No, Imam continues. He preaches and teaches through the du'as that he has taught us. We look at these du'as one after another. Imam is protesting and teaching his students through these du'as that what is right and what is wrong. Among the things that Imam says in a du'a number 47, he says, وَأَحْيِ بِهِ مَا أَمَاتَهُ الظَّالِمُونَ مِنْ مَعَالِمِ دِينِكَ. And this is to us. You and I are the reciters of this du'a. Imam is saying, وَأَحْيِ بِهِ مَا أَمَاتَهُ الظَّالِمُونَ. And give rebirth. And make this thing alive, what the zalimun, the oppressors, had destroyed as far as your deen is concerned. As far as the deen is concerned, what the oppressors had destroyed, ahyi bihi. It is your duty to go ahead and give rebirth to that. It is your duty to go ahead and make this to be spread among the people, so at least they know what this deen is all about. Our sixth Imam also said on numerous occasions that if only people knew the reality of our teachings, they will not run away from this religion. In fact, they will come and be part of this religion, jawq dar jawq, in large numbers. So this is one duty that our fourth Imam is telling us. So that's directly out of our teaching and a kalam of our fourth Imam. But there were other things that we see in the kalam of Imam Hussein as well, when he said, "Inni ad'ukum ila Allah I call you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa ila nabiyyihi, and towards the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fa inna sunnata qad umitat. Indeed, the tradition and the sunnah of Rasulullah has been expired or has been killed. Umitat, has died, has become extinct, does not exist anymore. He says, فَإِن تُجِيبُوا دَعْوَتِي وَتُطِيعُوا أَمْرِي أَهْدِكُمْ إِلَى سَبِيلِ الرَّشَادِ. Only if you come and follow me and listen to what I'm saying, I will guide you towards Sabil al-Rashad, to the proper guidance. Imam is saying that the sunnah of Rasulullah has been destroyed, massacred, killed from the day when Rasulullah died. The downfall of this religion when it began up until now. The community reaches a level, only 50 years have gone by, and the grandson of Rasulullah is finding himself in such situation. And the examples are so moving that when the captivity started, when the household is in the darbar of Yazid, Yazid, who has this court filled with foreigners there are Christians there are Jews there, and there are other sects that are sitting in this darbar. Right away, there were 10 voices that raised against what Yazid was doing. Oh Yazid, who is this person? Whose head is this? He said, it is the head of Hussein. Who Hussein? Hussein, grandson of Rasulullah. Hussein, son of the daughter of Rasulullah. Hussein, according to them, the son of the fourth rightly guided Khalifa of Rasulullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Hussein. Right away, 10 people stood up. Among them was his own daughter and his own wife. And how dare you do what you're doing right now? Jews got up. The ambassador of the Jews over there, he gets up and he says, we have a piece belonging to Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, not to Hazrat Musa, but to the horse and the sawari of Hazrat Musa belonging to it. That is still with us, and we give honor to it. This is the son of Rasulullah. Christian ambassador got up and said the same thing. Some of the people are the 18th generation of Hazrat Isa. They are regarded and revered still today. This Hussein is only one step from Rasulullah, and this is how you treat him. That itself was the biggest victory of the captivity when the ladies and the women and from the household of Rasulullah went into the darbar of Yazid. So we see some of these payam or the messages were directly coming out of the tongue of Imam Hussein and could be seen through what Imam Hussein was performing. But some of them were intangible. For example, the concept of unity that Imam left for us. We want to divide the concept of unity. We see the unanimity in standing against batil and working towards haqq. Imam said, Innal haqqa la yu'malu bihi wa annal batila la yutanaha anhu. Again the kalam of Imam. Haqq is not being practiced. Batil is not being scolded, or yutanaha is not being refrained from. This is the concept that brings everyone together. Everybody over here unanimously will say that we're all for haqq, regardless of what religious background that they might be in. And we're all against batil. This is one uniformity that Imam ﷺ has given to us. Second, we see that unanimity in distancing ourselves from Yazid. Unfortunately, today some segments have grown up which still associate themselves with Yazid. But we see at least the entire universe who have little bit knowledge of the history of Islam and the history of Muslimin, as we talked about yesterday. When they read, they want to distance themselves from Yazid. And they want to bring themselves closer to Imam Hussein. They're bringing themselves closer to Imam Hussein on the basis of seeing what Imam did, but not going further into the details of what Imam taught. This is where you and I come into play. Imam said, Ahyi, go ahead and give rebirth and make sure that this message reaches every single person. So uniformity as far as having this hatred for Yazid, and having this love for Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and then unanimity in weeping for Imam Hussein. We see that at least within our own circles. And this is the beauty of Imam Hussein, that you won't see many of the faces throughout the year. But just as soon as Muharram begins, you see these people coming together. There's only one force that's bringing them together, and that is Hussein. There was a speaker, he was giving lectures, and this was in Iran. And the program, as usually we have the programs over here, we have the speech, you have the matam, and then you have the niyaz, the food is served. And so this person, he would, the Moulana, the speaker, whoever he was, the program will begin with salat, as we usually begin the program with salat. Well, obviously there are very few of you, and by the time salat starts, again, it's 7:30, so it's quite a distance from the time that the speakers begin. So, again, keeping the time in mind, some people can make it, some people cannot make it, but most of you usually are able to make it for the time of salat as well. So the program would start that, usually the speaker was there, he would lead the prayer, and then, you will go through the marsiya, and you will go through the announcements, and then you will go through the majlis, and then you will go through the matam, and then at the end, the food was served. He saw that there was this group of youth and young men who would always come in towards the end of matam and join in to eat the food every day. He saw it the first day, he saw it the second day, the third day, the fourth day. And he saw that, these people, they have made a habit. They won't come for salat, they won't come for marsiya, they won't come for majlis. They'll sometime occasionally come for matam, and that too towards the end of it, and then join in for the food. Right away, he took this opportunity. He had the member to himself. One day he addressed it. I guess when these people were there, these people could hear. Back home, the voices and the loudspeakers are going all in the streets and wherever, so obviously his voice was being reached. He said, there is this group of people who always makes its way into the masjid. They have nothing to do with namaz, or the lecture, or the gham, and they come towards the end to enjoy the food. And again, he was addressing to them. They understood who was being addressed. A lot of other people who had seen them, they also understood who was being addressed. He gave the message, and he went away that day. The night that he slept, he saw in dream Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussein. And he narrates that I saw Abu Abdullah, who was saying that none of your speeches, none of your majalis, anything that you have done for the sake of the guidance of the people is accepted. How dare you address those people who come to my door in this fashion? Even if they're coming for the food, they're still coming for my sake. They're coming for Hussein. None of your speeches are worthy if you don't apologize to those people. This was only a dream. Now sometimes our dreams are true, hujjat upon us, but not necessarily. Only the dreams of the anbiya are hujjat and sort of acts as the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this was a direct dream that he had seen. We see it takes a bigger man to go ahead and apologize. He goes up to these people. He said, I want to seek your apology for what I had addressed you yesterday. You are guests of Imam Hussein, and I should not have said what I had said in front of the people. Please forgive me. If you don't, according to Imam Hussein, none of my speeches, none of my work, whatever I have done thus far is accepted. Those people also understood. They forgave the person. And from the next day, they started coming from the very beginning of the program. That was the impact on both those individuals and as well as on this individual who had such a thing. But remember how Imam Hussein is bringing all of these people together. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Weeping, you see unanimously, this uniformity that you see for the sake of Imam Hussein, that everybody, every eye is weeping. is crying for Imam Hussein. That's that unity that Imam Hussein is establishing. Quran talks about it as well. Surah Al-Imran, verse number 103 says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ عَادًا فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you in congregation, and remember how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala united you when you were enemies of one another. Through His grace, you became brothers. And we see that how this وَاعْتَصِمُوا حَبْلِ اللَّهِ. What is this habl? This rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among the mufassirin, they have mentioned one of the ropes is in the form of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. That brings us all together. Regardless of where we're from, the ethnic background, regardless of even the faith that we believe in. If you're Sunni, if you're a Shia, if you belong to another sect, you all still have the same love for Imam Hussein. The eyes still weep for the same Imam Hussein. Yeah, then there are some people who start saying that weeping is a bid'at, it's an innovation. Anything that was not done in the time of Rasulullah and it was created afterwards is a bid'at. Okay, that definition is true. But show us where the weeping was not done in the time of Rasulullah. I have the references that when Imam Hussein was born, Rasulullah was carrying Imam Hussein. And when he was carrying Imam Hussein, a newborn, how you enjoy the newborn, especially if it's your grandchild. And Jibreel comes and says something to Rasulullah. When he says something to Rasulullah, Rasulullah starts weeping. He wept. The women in the house, they saw Rasulullah weeping. Majority of them were the wives of Rasulullah. When they saw Rasul weeping like this, they asked, "Oh Rasul, what happened?" Right away they feared if something happened to the child. They said, "No, nothing happened to the child, but something will happen to this child." Jibreel just announced to me, or told me and informed me, that this Hussein will be martyred mercilessly in the land of Karbala. Hearing this, even the wives started weeping. Again, it's a natural phenomena. If you hear someone's death, about someone's death, or the brutality, right away it brings tears to your eyes. Rasul in the same state comes out of the house, and now there are companions of Rasulullah standing there. They see that the athar of weeping is, apparent in the face of Rasul. They ask, "Oh Rasul, have you been crying? Have you been weeping?" He narrates the same story, the same hadith, or the same story to the companions that he had narrated to his wives. The companions started weeping. You want to know the roots of this majlis? Is in the house of Rasulullah. The first zakir is Rasul himself. Among the ladies, the first who wept for Hussein are the wives of Rasulullah. And among the men, the first who wept for Imam Hussein are the main companions of Rasulullah. Rasul is the zakir, and everyone else is the sami' of that majlis. And so, okay, fine. You have proven the point that, weeping did occur. But you might weep for a day or two, maximum 10 days. You weep for 2 months. Isn't that too much? Again, the same concept is to somehow limit it. Somehow find a way to suppress it. I said, no, we do it for 2 months. Again, it might have been something which was stretched over the years. It might not have been the same thing initially when Masumeen used to commemorate. But it's still, even if it's 2 months and 8 days, it's still nowhere close to what Rasulullah, his sunnah tells us. You say, what sunnah of Rasulullah? There's a year known as Amul Huzn in our history. What is Amul Huzn? The year in which Rasulullah lost 2 of his most important allies and his helpers. One in the form of Janabe Khadija salamullahi alayha, another in the form of Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. One who financially supported Rasul, the other who morally supported Rasul. When both of these personalities died in the same year, Rasul said this is called Amul Huzn. Am in Arabic is referring towards the year of huzn and weeping and grief If you want to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah, we have actually made it less. 2 months is actually less than what Rasulullah had recommended, a whole year of weeping for Hazrat Khadija and as well as for Hazrat Abu Talib. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So going back to the concept of unity that Imam Hussein and the message of Karbala and the message of Ashura is given to us. It brings everyone together, clinging everyone together. But we want to make sure at this point that our enemy is still awake and is still well aware of our weaknesses. The way they devised a plan to divide, how to break the power of Muslimin, they divided us into, we were always divided, but still there was this harmony that always existed. You never saw that there was any, people were able to abide with one another's cultural or faith or the backgrounds or the things and the practices. They abided with it. Not too long ago you saw that, brothers of Ahl Sunnah would take place and take part in the processions of Ashura. To the extent they were part of it physically and also practicing it. But you saw that over the years this is something which came as a divide. To distance us from the brothers of Ahl Sunnah, for example. When that worked, and they were able to plant a seed of Wahhabiyat to divide both of us, now they're attacking the Shias themselves to divide them as well. Imam Hussein brought us together. We came together. We every year come together in the name of Imam Hussein, regardless of our differences. Two people might not want to see each other, but they come and sit at the same Farsh-e-Aza for the sake of Imam Hussein. But the devised plan now is to divide this community, which is predominantly all of Shias. How? By initiating some practices within our culture that were not part of the mainstream teachings of Masumin. And when those practices are initiated and implemented, right away you will see differences of opinion. When you see differences of opinion among the people, right away it will create a divide within the people. And that's what we see right now as well. Within among our own Shias. Right now, if you want to step out, we want to welcome all the brothers from Ahl Sunnah and other communities as well. But even when you look at among our own sufuf and our own people, we see there's a divide. This group is considered to be the Matami group, as if they don't do anything else but Matam. This group is considered to be, for example, the Namazi group, for example, as if they have nothing to do with Matam or Azadari. And within this Azadari, there's group which is considered to be the Wahhabi Shia or the regular Shia, for example, based on what some of their beliefs are. This is again a plan to divide us. When you divide, you become weak. Simple as that. Has been happening from the very long time. When we come together, this is the opportunity, this is the time of the year when we all come together for the sake of Imam Hussein. We're sitting on the same floor next to each other. This is a time to again go ahead and reunite. This is time to again go back to those core teachings that unite us all together. And if there are these differences that are there, let it be known. You will not be questioned about the things. A lot of people say this, what kind of answer will we give Janab Sayyida if she asked, we did not do so and so. No. You will not be asked. Don't take Masumin to that level where they will be asking you about their personal things. Masumin will be questioning you if you did not do anything as far as their kalam, as far as their teachings, as far as that became what we see. We consider the kalam of Masum the same way which is the kalam of Rasulullah, the same way which is in the Quran as well. The way Quran is hujjat upon us, Rasul's saying is hujjat upon us, Imam's sayings and his actions are also hujjat upon us. As long as those things which they had taught, which are part of our religion, which are part of our fiqh, if we are failing to do that, Masumin will be questioning us tomorrow for that. But everything else, yes. There are statuses and ranks and elevation of the ranks when you come to this Azadari. This Azadari is very important. This is where you earn your shafa'at as well. This is where you earn that extra mile, if you want to call it. That takamul, that perfection that comes through here. But it has to be coupled with those core values that are already understood. You can't sacrifice those core values and then attach yourself. This is not what Imam Hussein and the message of Imam Hussein was. We look at, these are the nights which are increasing the musibat of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Has it not been enough that we see on the night of Ashura, that when the Sayyid al-Shuhada has already told his companions that what is going to happen tomorrow. And this Shab-e Ashur, as I said initially, is no less than the day of Hashr, of Qayamat. You would imagine the group of people would be worried, scared. But all you see in the tents is the humming sound of ibadat. Everyone is either busy doing the ibadat, or they're getting ready for the battle tomorrow by making sure that their weapons are in fine form. Some are performing salat, some are doing munajat, some are making dua. Ladies are preparing their children and giving them important messages for tomorrow's battle as to how you remain steadfast and don't turn back around. Imam Hussein, when he steps into the battlefield, when everybody has gone, and he finds himself to be all alone when he had lost Hazrat Abbas, this is where Imam says the istaghasa, which you all know, that Imam says, Hal min nasirin yansuruna. Hal min mughithin yughithuna. Is there anyone? Look at the mazlumiyat of Imam Hussein at this point. That he's asking, is there anyone who would come and help us? Is there anyone who can defend us still? This is the grandson of Rasulullah who's pleading in this fashion. And when this sound reaches the ears of Sayyid Sajjad, in the tent when Sayyid Sajjad is going through that illness of his, he hears the noise, sound of Imam Hussein. He was being taken care by his aunt Kulthum. He said, oh my aunt, my Baba is calling. How come no one is answering to his call? No one is saying labbaik to his call. Where's Abbas? Kulthum said, Abbas is no more. Where's Ali Akbar? He said, Ali Akbar is no more. Hearing this, Sayyid Sajjad gets up, wants to grab a hold of his sword and wants to leave the tent and go help his father. Kulthum manages to hold back the youthful nephew, that, oh my son, you're not allowed to go. Imam Hussein sees this. He comes towards the tent where Sayyid Sajjad is. Imam tells Sayyid Sajjad, oh my son, shahadat will be the easiest part of this whole Karbala. What you have to go through is the most difficult of the places. Ajrukum Allah. What am I going to go through, oh my Baba? You're going to be being paraded through the cities such as Kufa and Sham. You will be marching in the streets of Kufa and Sham. So what is wrong with that? Marching in the streets of Kufa and Sham, you don't realize you will be marching in the streets of Kufa and Sham with the ladies without their head veils on their heads. This will be the task that is ahead of you, oh my son. So the shahadat is not asked from you right now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot leave this world without the hujjat of Allah. So you have to remain. Imam was saying all of these things to his son Sayyid Sajjad. He hears noise coming from another tent. He goes towards that other tent where Janab Zainab was. He says to Janab Zainab, oh my sister Zainab, what is the what noise that is coming from the tent? What has happened? She said, oh Mawla, as soon as you say Hal min nasirin yansuruna, Ali Asghar threw himself Allahu Akbar. Ali Akbar threw himself from the cradle. Imam goes ahead and picks up the 6-month-old. He says, let me take Ali Asghar so that I can maybe find some water for him. So before I go, I can bring some water for Ali Asghar. How does Rabab give her son a 6-month-old? I'm sure there are a lot of ladies sitting in the halls today with their 6-month-old, with their 9-month-old, with their year-olds. Just imagine and picture yourself in the same situation, knowing that whoever goes to the battlefield does not come back alive. How does Rabab give up her 6-month-old? But Imam asks for Hazrat Ali Asghar. He says, I will only take him to go ahead and quench his thirst. I will go ahead and ask these people if they can provide some water. Nawilini, Ibni, give me my son. He takes a hold of Ali Asghar. He goes out and marches towards the battlefield. When he goes to the battlefield, this was the scene where Imam ﷺ puts Ali Asghar in front of the enemies, and he says to them, oh people of Kufa, your war is with me. What has this 6-month-old done to you? He's been thirsty for the past 3 days. He hasn't had the milk of his mother either. He hasn't drank anything in the past 3 days. How difficult it is for you to give a few drops of water to my son Ali Asghar. This is where we see when a scholar was asked as to could there be anything more difficult than death, he said yes, there's one thing which is more difficult. A generous person asking and spreading his hand in front of those who are lower than him. Imam is doing just that. He's asking these people to provide some water, although it is for his 6-month-old. Imam says to Ali Asghar, oh my son, as far as this thing is concerned, I have relayed the message, but I want your help as well. Imam turns the face of Ali Asghar towards the enemies. Ali Asghar shows them the dried lips of his, showing that genuinely he is the one who's thirsty, that Imam is not seeking water for himself. This was the mood which changed, brought about a reform into the sufuf of enemies as well. The enemies is looking at Ali Asghar. Many of these wicked and wretched people, they could not bear to even cry at that moment. A lot of them started weeping. Umar Asad sees this. He sees a change is coming in his people. Right away, he addresses to Hurmula, Ya Hurmula, iqta kalam al-Hussein. Cut off the kalam of Hussein. That means kill Ali Asghar. Who is this Hurmula? Hurmula is the same person who drew the arrow when the mashk of Hazrat Sakina, the water skin of Hazrat Sakina, the water that Hazrat Abbas was carrying, this is the same Hurmula. When Hurmula is ordered the same thing, to go ahead and cut off the kalam of Imam, he takes the arrow in his hand. Back in the day, they used to make the arrows not only pointing one way, but there were 3 heads of the arrow sometime. Arrows were big, and when Hurmula was also pointing this arrow towards Ali Asghar, this arrow was the size of Ali Asghar. How big could a 6-month-old would be? He takes an arrow and he throws and shoots this arrow towards Ali Asghar. Ali Asghar, who had come and asked for a few drops of water. Imam Hussein, who had come and asked for a few drops of water. What does he get in reply? He gets this arrow coming towards him. The arrow which pierces through the body of Ali Asghar. The narrators say that it goes through from one side and it comes out of the other side. The blood, Imam came for a few drops of water, but the water, instead of water, the blood of Ali Asghar comes out. This is how difficult the job of Imam is. There was one thing when the arrow is pierced through Ali Asghar's body. It is another thing to pull that arrow back out from the body. Imam cannot take the body back to the mother. What would Rabab say? Oh Mawla, I gave you Ali Asghar as a trust, and you bring him back in this form. Imam digs a grave, he buries Ali Asghar, and he performs Salatul Janaza. He did not lead Namaz-e-Janaza. There's no one else to pray behind Imam. He prays Salatul Janaza by himself. Another narration says that Imam goes towards the tent. When people heard that Hussein is coming back, Hussein is coming back, the little Sakina runs outside of the tent. First thing she says to Imam Hussein, "Oh Baba, Ali Asghar is more beloved to you. You went and you quenched his thirst. You don't love Sakina. I'm still thirsty." Imam lifts the veil, Imam lifts the abba and shows the bloodied body of Ali Asghar that he did not drink water. Ala lanatullahi al-qawm al-zalimin wa sayalamu allazina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we've done a lot of sins, please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and the strength to be able to follow the teachings of Masumeen ﷺ. Oh Allah, give us the strength to be able to follow the messages of Ashura. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur of our weighted Imam and make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.